right, well, the results are in tonight. JD Vance, the Trump-backed candidate in Ohio, has won the state's Republican Senate primary. 12-term Congressman Tim Ryan won for the Democrats tonight in that primary. They will square off against one another come November. It was a big night in Ohio, the Buckeye State. Indiana also having a primary tonight. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Marnie Hughes, joined by Leland Vittert. Primary day #1 in the books.
Oh, boy, there'll be a lot of them coming up. We've got Nebraska, we've got Georgia, we've got Pennsylvania. JD Vance's win tonight makes former President Trump 1 for 1 in picking Republican candidates this primary season for national office. And at least so far, he remains the Republican kingmaker. And there are a few more primaries coming up this month alone with Trump-endorsed candidates, shall we say. Some doing pretty well, others not so much. I'm thinking about Nebraska in terms of not so much, and at least one in Georgia. Bringing Chris Steyerwalt, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, columnist for The Dispatch. All right, so I think by our count, this is the third or fourth version of JD Vance that he has finally found some traction with.
Well, he sounded tonight like a person who understands what his job is, which is to unite a Republican Party. He rightly started out talking about Dolan and talking about the wing of the Republican Party that is the traditional conservative wing of the Republican Party that is most going to be the hardest for him to bring aboard. You look at this race and you see how Rob Portman's decision to back former state party chairwoman Jane Timken in this race was a big mistake. She was a weak candidate. She couldn't figure out exactly who she was. It was Dolan who found the momentum in the lane to be in the un-Trump space. So I think there's a lesson to be taken there for Republicans who want to oppose Trump or who are looking for an alternate path for the GOP. You got to pick carefully, and you don't want to bet on the wrong horse here. But all in all, you take Ohio, you take this result, and you see that among the new look Republican Party, the working class, blue collar, that Republican Party that was shaped by Donald Trump, in a state like this, half of the vote, right? More than half of the vote is going to nationalist candidates who are a break from the traditional conservative model for the GOP. And for those kind of folks, that's got to be heartening to them.
Chris, a common thread that we're going to be hearing over and over, not just in Ohio tonight, but we'll be hearing it in Nebraska, Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, all down the line for these primaries, is the Trump effect, the sway and the power of the former president in these elections. Leland brought up earlier tonight, I mean, less than 3 weeks, JD Vance was trailing in the polls, and then Trump swoops in, gives him that endorsement, right name or not. When he comes out to stump for him, it made a difference, and he is the winner tonight. I want to play briefly for you, Chris, just a soundbite from JD Vance tonight celebrating his win, and then we'll talk about the Trump effect.
They wanted to write a story that this campaign would be the death of Donald Trump's America First agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, it ain't the death of the America First agenda.
A referendum on the former president tonight, round 1.
Yeah, look, we have to remember this is one race with one set of candidates in one state. JD Vance had as his major liability he's a rich guy. He had a lot of rich people supporting him. He had the support of Tucker Carlson and other big name prominent nationalists around the country. So he had a lot going for him. What he had going against him with those voters was that he had said in one of his previous iterations, he had said some awful things about Donald Trump, and he needed to be cleaned up. And Trump's endorsement was especially valuable in this race because Vance's problem was that he was perceived as being perhaps insufficiently loyal in a movement that places personal loyalty, a very high premium on personal loyalty. So Trump's endorsement here could absolve him of some of those sins. The other thing that I would say that we have to remember in this race, Trump's timing was excellent. His timing in Ohio or in Pennsylvania next door, terrible. He picked Dr. Oz at the wrong moment, at the wrong time. He did it all wrong. This one was right. He waited until the end when the race started to shape up. People don't dial, even the high propensity voters who participate in a primary like this, they don't dial in till the end. Undecided numbers stayed high. The other thing that happened was late in the running, Gibbons just fell apart. He was a bad candidate. It wasn't revealed to the end. He had bad debates. It was a wreck. So you had a bunch of movement in these numbers as the race was solidifying. Trump came in at just the right time and nudged that over. I don't think he can do that in Nebraska. I don't think he can do that in Pennsylvania. North Carolina is a really interesting test. But when you get down to it, the real, the Megillah is down in Georgia, where you have famous statewide elected, well-known candidates on both sides in the gubernatorial primary down there with Trump trying to take out a sitting governor. And we'll see. That's the big test. Trump wins round one tonight with a good pick.
Yeah, you think about Georgia, which is where I was going to head. David Perdue, obviously, challenging Brian Kemp, the sitting popular Republican governor. Perdue is selling the falsehood, hey, Trump won the election, I would have fought for him, I did fight for him as senator, and the like. If Herschel Walker wins the Senate primary, which seems, at least right now, likely according to the polls, Perdue loses, I'm still trying to figure out how we write a script that Donald Trump is not the undisputed kingmaker in the Republican Party.
Well, we'll see what happens in Pennsylvania. We'll see what happens in Nebraska. There's some football to be played between here and there.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, that Raphael Warnock is almost cannot win, right? He is really out of, if we want to keep the football metaphor going, he is playing way out of position. He's not just a Democrat in what is really a red state. He is a liberal Democrat in a red state. Now, I think that the Republicans probably could have taken a safer course than an untested candidate like Walker, but he's beloved and famous for his time playing football down there. And barring other revelations, Herschel Walker should be able to walk into the seat. And he's not even really trying that hard. He's not doing debates. He's not doing a lot of appearances. He's going to let his celebrity take him in. That's not Donald Trump. The battle here is that Trump picked a bad candidate in Perdue. Perdue doesn't have any reason to be running for governor. He has not been able to express some cause that he wants to pursue against the popular sitting incumbent. Trump has put, for the first time, money from his own PAC into this race because he knows this is a serious test. Now, the race can shape up a lot as we get to the end, but this one is really the open field warfare between Trump and the rest of the Republican Party.
Yeah, and you say rest of the Republican Party. You got George W. Bush heading down there for a Brian Kemp fundraiser. And you also have, I think it's Mark Short from the VP's office, right, who just signed on?
Sure.
Yeah, with Kemp. So you've got Donald Trump, this proxy race, I guess, lining up in Georgia. Chris Steyerwalt of the Dispatch and of AEI as well. It's been a long night. Welcome back to the campaign trail, my friend.
Good to be with you. Have a great night.
See you soon.
We need a fourth to round out our
we're getting here pretty close.
I don't think Chris invited me, but I'm inviting myself.
All right.
All right,
it's a good party.
We now want to turn to Decision Desk HQ advisor Scott Tranter, who has been keeping a close eye on this race tonight in Ohio.
Hey, called it what? Hey, Scott, what'd you guys get it? 30 minutes, 25 minutes before anybody else? Congratulations.
Thank you. No, congratulations for you guys, too. Yeah, no, 25 minutes before everyone else. I think I told you the night before, or a little bit earlier today, we thought this race was going to go past 11 o'clock, but JD Vance really ran away with it, especially in the rural areas. And I think, as Chris said before, it was that Trump endorsement that really pushed him over the top. At the end of the day, it looks like 80% of all votes cast in Ohio will be cast on Election Day, which means that endorsement over the last 10 days probably did the trick for him.
Well, we were ready for a late night, Scott. We're glad that it didn't work out that way because we love our sleep. But let's talk about what drove people to the polls today. I mean, the Roe v. Wade thing in the last 24 hours certainly had an impact. The Trump effect in Ohio. What is your data showing you right now this early on as sort of an indicator of what we can anticipate the next few Tuesdays?
Well, it'll be interesting. The Roe v. Wade thing, I think people are still digesting it. And in this GOP Senate primary where all of the people are pro-life, I don't necessarily think it really helped them or hurt the turnout there. What I think it'll be interesting is in these Pennsylvania races we got coming up, Nebraska coming up, Georgia, where the Senate's in balance, the governor's in balance, especially depending on how this decision actually comes out. All of a sudden, governors and state legislatures are going to mean a whole lot more than necessarily control the House and the Senate. So I think we're gonna wait to see an effect where that happens in those states. As for tonight, I think it was purely a Trump endorsement that really moved the needle tonight for his candidate JD Vance.
Yeah, and Ohio Governor Mike DeWine also securing his party's nomination in the Buckeye State. I don't want to fly over Indiana as we walk through the primary results tonight and talk about what's going on in that state, because you've got about 24 House races, these so-called liberty candidates who are trying to push things even further and further to the right. The issues in Indiana are the same tonight.
Yeah, no, I think what we're seeing in Indiana is a lot of different primary fights that are generally fought. How far right can you go? How far left you can go? We're still counting a lot of votes in Indiana. They count a little bit differently than Ohio, but I think we're going to find a couple of upsets in some of these conservative districts, and it's not going to really mean anything this November. Because if you win the primary, you're going to win this November. But I think it's going to leave its mark on the state legislature in Indiana, and certainly the federal offices when they head there this fall.
Which of these Senate primaries are you paying the closest attention to in the next few weeks? Is it Pennsylvania, North Carolina? Is it the Georgia race that we were talking with Chris about?
All of those are good. For me, it's Pennsylvania. And for me, because I'm an election junkie, I'm also thinking about 2024, right? Pennsylvania is a state that basically tipped it for Joe Biden. That was the race. That was the state that allowed him to win the presidency back in 2020, or the one that tipped it for him. And it looks like it's going to be solidly, it looks like it's going to be leaning Republican, especially on the Senate side. So how that race turns out, especially this fall, is going to be a big indicator going into 2024. And before we even get to this fall, we got to talk about the primary, right? So is it going to be Mehmet Oz? Is it going to be McCormick? Is Trump's endorsement going to play out there? Pennsylvania, to me, is the really one to look at. Not that there's not going to be some interesting stuff in Nebraska and Georgia and North Carolina, but Pennsylvania is going to be the one we're going to be talking about in a couple weeks. We're talking about this fall, and we're going to be talking about in 2024.
You always think about, with a Trump endorsement, that he endorses somebody who wins the primary but then is unable to win the general. That doesn't seem like the case with JD Vance, that he was any worse in the general versus anybody else. You put up Tim Ryan, who he will be running against. Only choice to protect abortion is to flip the seat blue, expand our Democratic Senate majority. If you can't make a contribution to our campaign, blah, blah, blah. That's what every candidate says. However, Tim Ryan was able to put up a poll, which we don't know whether it meets our standards or not. It's 37-36, Ryan Vance. Then you look to Pennsylvania that you said you'd be watching, Mehmet Oz versus McCormick in the primary. Either of those have a substantially better chance or worse chance in the general?
You know what? I think a lot of people would say Pennsylvania is the better chance for the Democratic challenger. I'm going to be a little contrarian. I think Tim Ryan's a pretty good candidate. He's going to raise a lot of money. He's well liked in Ohio. He's got the right Democratic views for the Ohio electorate.
Yep.
And he's got a pretty good staff around him. So I think that's going to be a pretty good matchup, and certainly closer than a lot of people are thinking it's going to be this fall.
Well, the polling shows 37-36. I know. But come on, we got to talk about something. It's election night. It's just the way this works. It gets later.
Primaries.
But I want to get back to what you said earlier, which I think was fascinating, the way we started this. We really thought this was going to be a late night. And it's not. And it's not because the vote broke late in a way that we didn't think it would, that you didn't think it would. Take us through who those voters are that the Trump endorsement really mattered. Extrapolate that out, if it holds, for Pennsylvania and, say, North Carolina.
Sure. We were looking in Ohio. We were looking in the suburbs of Cleveland. We were looking in the rural vote around Dayton. We were expecting Dolan from the Cleveland area to hold up stronger than he was there. JD Vance overshot expectations. He's getting over 30% in the suburbs of Cleveland in a four-man race. That's pretty decisive in a four-man race like that. And then you look at some of the rural areas where, Josh Mandel theoretically has done better in the past. He's been an elected statewide office holder in Ohio before. And so he's known out there. He should have had a base out there. And JD Vance, he did pretty well. And I understand JD Vance has a book, talking about how he's from there, but he's still a venture capitalist from Harvard. And so the fact that he was able to shore up both the suburbs and some of the rural votes in a 4-man race like that, I think that's basically the playbook we're going to be looking at in Pennsylvania. Is that something Mehmet Oz is going to be able to do? He's going to be a win in around Pittsburgh as well as in around Montgomery County outside of Philadelphia.
Wow. Didn't Vance also go to Yale for law school too? Double Ivy.
Like that.
I think he's a double Ivy guy. Yeah.
I think we need to get Scott
Very smart guy.
Scott, we need to get you a touchscreen. I mean, you're diving pretty deep into the weeds.
He'd be way too happy with a touchscreen.
Yeah.
We'll go county by county with you. All right, Scott, we're going to plant that seed. Scott Tranter with Decision Desk HQ. Good to see you. All right. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.